Well, I'm delighted to say that Chris Boardman is here, winner of the Cycling Book of the Year. For Triumphs and Turbulence. Chris, huge congratulations to you. In the writing of this book, I'm interested, did you ever consider using a ghost? Because you wrote this yourself. Was that very important to you?
We did briefly, just for expediency's sake, really. And a person I'd worked with for many years, Jeremy Whittle, wrote a chapter, and I read it, or more specifically, my wife Sally read it, and she said, "No, it's way too pleasant, not miserably enough. It's not you." And it became apparent very quickly that if it was going to get written, it had to be by me, which is not something I specifically wanted to do, and I found it incredibly difficult. But I got about halfway through, and I actually met up with our contact at Ebury Publishing, Andrew Goodfellow, who's an incredibly persuasive individual, and said, "Andrew, I can't do it. Don't want to do it. It's just too hard. I don't think I can get through it." And I gave him the money back, slapped the £20 on the table, and somehow walked out still writing a book. And I'm still to this day not sure how that happened. But that was the point where I had to just knuckle down and go, right, we've got to get it finished. It was already a year and a half delayed. And we went to America, tried to write it in America, drank a lot of craft beer, still didn't happen, got back, and just got to the end of it. And it's a hard thing to do when you take experiences of your life, or take this 10-year period, or working on the Tour de France for many, many years, and get it down to 2,000 words. It feels like a responsibility. And it was almost cathartic when you look back and realise you're not a very pleasant kid, and which you were in your 20s. And it's a chance to try and make amends and to apologise to people that weren't treated well. So it wasn't necessarily the experience I wanted. I wouldn't call it pleasant. I wouldn't say it was something I wanted to do it again.
I was about to ask
Having
that.
done it, I'm pleased that I have, and that it's finished, and flattered that people have enjoyed it.
2.5 years then in the making. It's a lot of time and effort. From reading it, it seems to be that you almost learnt more from your defeats than you did from victories.
I think there was a famous book called "It's Not About the Bike." Unfortunately, that title had gone, or I would have taken it, because that's how I see life, really. At the risk of sounding melodramatic, the bike riding bit of it was 8 years. And so, that could be, if you're lucky, 10% of your life. So it's not actually a big bit, and there's lots of other things that I'm interested in, and I wanted to write about those things as well, and the bits that interested me. And I think when you don't set out to write a book, or you don't want to make money from something, you're in a lovely position where you write about what you want, rather than necessarily you don't think about what people want to read. I'm not trying to make a product. And I'm fortunate that people wanted to read it, but there's much more to life than just those things, and I hope that came out.
So would your wife say that you're a happier person now that you've written this book, if it was a little bit cathartic?
I'd love to see my wife sitting here doing this interview, because she's already downstairs telling people she's an award-winning author. Because we
Behind
we
every
spent,
good man.
Well, it is something of a cliche, but we spent days and days sat in Starbucks writing, and we became gold members in Starbucks because of this book. And I'd write and do the struggling bit, and then I'd go look at that, and she'd just reluctantly look up from what she was reading, skim over it, and go, "That's boring." And she'd just sow a seed. There would be, "What about this? You didn't mention this," and that would be the inspiration to write something else. And it does sound melodramatic, but if there was such a thing in modern days, she's my muse, and has been for 30 years. So she wrote the book as much as I did, even though, annoyingly, she never put pen to paper.
Got to ask you a question about the current state of British cycling. How do you see the current situation?
Well, not to put a positive spin on it, I think it's good. I've sat down with the new chairman, Jonathan Browning, and really solid guy who's clearly here for the sport. He doesn't need to do this. I was part of the board that selected the new performance director, Stephen Park, Sparky. I think he's absolutely perfect. I think most of British cycling has been excellent for 10 years, and I get really annoyed actually when I see the way it's been treated in the last 10 years, yes, this business had problems, absolutely, but everybody had forgotten the fact that they'd won more gold medals than any other sport, than most of the countries for the last 3 Olympic Games. Everybody was desperate to get into this system. Nobody was rushing to leave. It was incredibly successful, and we need to make sure that we remember that it did exactly what it set out to. And like every business, there's issues, they solved them, and I think it's in an excellent place at the moment.
An excellent place to carry on achieving the next Olympic cycle and onwards.
Well, one would hope so. And in some ways, if you take the nationalistic aspect out of it and think of the health of the sport, you actually don't want them to be as successful as they have been in the past, because they've been so dominant. What is it for other countries to keep piling resources in? So I think they'll be as competitive as they've always been, there or thereabouts, for the foreseeable future.
Chris, thanks very much for popping up to speak to us. Many congratulations on Cycling Book of the Year. Chris Boardman, ladies and gentlemen.